Hey, this is Donna from Faded and Forgotten History, and we're back today to do part 2 of the history of Cedar Hill or the Watson Farm. But this will be about the history of the Watsons buying the 1828 Cedar Hill plantation and the era that the Watsons lived there. So let's begin. It's a beautiful spring day. The sun is shining and a cool breeze is blowing across Little River through the leaves of the aging oak trees and up the hill to the old Watson farm. I sit at a wooden picnic table in the backyard talking to Hugh and Henry Brown, two kind brothers who have taken time to meet with me today and share with me the history of their family farm. I listen to them reminisce about their childhood, visiting their grandparents at this farm as little boys and things they remember their mother sharing about her years of growing up here. We stroll through the yard, ancient boxwood shrubs towering above us and rows of fading daffodils pushing up through the thick, tall grass. We walk through the large, aging house, our footsteps echoing through the vacant rooms. As we pause, we admire the craftsmanship. Later, we stroll through the backfield to the Calhoun family burial ground, located on a knoll above the river. The sound of rushing water drifts through the trees and swirls around us as we read the epitaphs lovingly inscribed on the grave markers. The farm is a shadow of what once was, yet it is rich in history. A history of love, tragedy, endurance, hope, and joy. A history that deserves to be remembered. The Civil War had drawn to a close, and the South was still reeling from the loss, devastation, and financial hardship. It had been over 70 years since the Joseph Calhoun family, cousin of John C. Calhoun, had built their lovely home, Cedar Hill, on a high ground overlooking Little River and the family-owned business, Calhoun Mills. After the deaths of both Joseph and his wife, Fanny Calhoun, the plantation was inherited by their daughter, and later, due in part to the financial hardships brought on as a result of the war between the states, the family home and land were sold. The Calhoun era at Cedar Hill had ended. The two-story white farmhouse and 800 acres of surrounding land were purchased by John Henry Watson, a farmer from the nearby community at Cedar Springs. John Watson and his first wife, Addie Neal Watson, had 3 children. Addie had died at 25 years of age, leaving John to care for their 3 small sons, Ernest, Kennedy, and Ebb. A year later, in 1886, John married Mary Jane Minnie Cowan. They had 3 children of their own, Pearl, Archie, and Ollie. The large farm had plenty of room for their blended family. During the years John and Minnie Watson lived at Cedar Hill, the home underwent substantial renovations and additions. The home was expanded to include additional bedrooms and fireplaces, an expansive foyer to welcome guests, and a staircase leading to the second floor. Later, a kitchen, a back porch, an additional bedroom, and an indoor bathroom, complete with clawfoot tub, were also added. During the Calhoun era, the plantation had acquired the name Cedar Hill due to the abundance of large cedar trees that grew on the property. But as the years passed, Cedar Hill became known to those in the community as the Watson Farm and eventually was given the name Flatwoods. The farm, which had once been dependent on enslaved labor prior to the Civil War, was now sustained by the labor of sharecroppers. As many as 7 sharecroppers lived in nearby tenant houses on the property. Each morning they would report to the Watson home to collect a plow and mule and spend the day working their plot of land. The land was planted in both corn and cotton. When the corn was harvested, it was taken across the river to the mill to be ground, just as in years past. In 1900, John Watson passed away at 47 years of age. He was buried at Cedar Springs ARP Church, where he had attended throughout his life and was a ruling elder. By this time, the older children were furthering their education and beginning lives on their own. Ernest entered the medical field, became a doctor, and was a prominent child specialist in Anderson. Kennedy became a successful farmer in the Lebanon community, and Ebb moved to Bamberg, South Carolina, and was involved in the timber business. Pearl graduated from Linwood College, married, and eventually moved to Greenville. Archie became a doctor and a captain in the medical corps in the Army. He later practiced medicine in Greenville. Ollie attended Erskine College and then returned home to continue his father's footsteps as landlord and farmer. Then, in October 1918, 1 month before the armistice was signed to end World War I, Minnie passed away after a long illness. Archie was away serving in France at the time. Minnie was buried in Mount Carmel Cemetery. Ollie continued to farm, occasionally auctioning off small portions of land. Around 1919, he married Laura Augusta Cade from nearby Mount Carmel. Perhaps Laura had ridden by the picturesque farmhouse many times in her life, never dreaming one day it would be her home. Ollie and Laura raised 2 daughters on the large farm, Laura Jean and Mary Virginia. Both girls followed in their family footsteps and excelled in their studies, both receiving a college education. Laura Jean graduated valedictorian of Sharon High School. At Erskine College, she was voted president of the senior class and most beautiful girl on campus. She taught at Delahousie State School for several years and later married Hugh Cook Brown. They lived in McCormick and raised 2 sons, Hugh Jr. and Henry. Mary Virginia received a degree from both Winthrop and Clemson University. She taught school at Abbeville High School and later at League Middle School in Greenville. Mary Virginia married Colonel Thomas Abel after he returned from serving World War II. They had 2 daughters, Tavy and Laura, and lived in Greenville, South Carolina. After the girls had left home, it would often feel lonely on the farm for Ollie and Laura, but visits from their 4 grandchildren were special occasions. Once again, the large old home would be filled with voices, the sound of children's laughter, and the patter of little feet across the aging wood floors. In addition to farming and being a landlord to as many as 7 sharecropping families, Ollie was also a trustee of John Delahousie School and an elder at Mount Carmel ARP Church. When Ollie passed away in 1961 at 66 years of age, he had lived his life well as a son, father, husband, and as a pillar of his community. Laura Cade Watson passed away on June 11, 1978. She had lived to see 5 of her great-grandchildren. Both Ollie and Laura are buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery. This would be the last generation of Watsons to live out their lives in the old home place. The house and 500 acres now belong to the Watson descendants. For many years, the farm was the setting for the annual Watson family reunions. On the kitchen wall hangs a collection of framed family photos from these memorable gatherings, a reminder of the bond of the Watson family that they have shared through the years. Today, the large white home on the hill sits empty and silent. The facade is faded, and wisteria vines twist and twirl their way around the old porch railings and peek through the cracked window panes. In the yard, daffodils and lilies bloom in abundance each spring, giving testament to the lives that once resided here and called this place home. And at an old picnic table in the yard, 2 brothers sit with me and reminisce about a lifetime of memories, and the shadows of the past come to life once more. So thanks for joining us and listening to the second part of the history of Cedar Hill, also known as the Watson home or Flatwoods. If you enjoy listening to the stories that tell a lot more of the history behind our videos that we do, please let us know. Please comment, like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and we will know to share more of these in story form. Thanks again for joining us. Have a good day.